My school class just started the pacer test. They haven't stopped for 3 days straight. I adjusted my gym bag as I approached the gymnasium. The building looked run down, but a sign posted outside the front door told me I was in the right place to participate in the fitness study. Pacer fitness test, 4 p.m. Earlier that week, my old PE teacher had reached out to me over my school email and offered me a spot in the study. It was an out-of-school pacer test, $200 for an hour's work. I signed up right away. I pushed open the front door to reveal a dozen men and women standing around in exercise clothes. I stuffed my bag into a nearby locker, pausing when a voice came on over the intercom. Please leave your cell phones and any other metal objects inside your locker before passing through the metal detector. Thank you. I looked around at the other runners and shrugged before leaving my phone behind in my bag. We all passed through the metal detector before filing into the gymnasium. I'm sure you can imagine the gym. It's the same one that's inside every rundown high school across the country. It was completely empty and lit by flickering fluorescent lights. I was surprised that I still hadn't seen any researchers. The intercom crackled to life again. Please put on your neck sensors. We'll be using them to check your blood pressure and heart rate as you run. We all walked around to the nearby table, where a dozen blue collars lay with blinking lights. I grabbed the one marked with my name and slid it around my neck. Powerful magnets clicked together around the back, sealing it into place. When each of the other runners had slid their collars into place, we all approached the edge of the basketball court to begin the test. The intercom crackled to life one last time. Welcome to the Fitness Gram Pacer Test. You should run the length of the court each time you hear this sound. Beep. Run as long as possible. If you fail to cross the court before the sound, your collar will be detonated. If you attempt to remove your collar, it will be detonated. If you attempt to leave the gymnasium, your collar will be detonated. On your mark, get ready, start. Beep. We all ran across the court lengthwise, much faster than normal. When we reached the other side, we all paused, looking around at each other. Most people looked bewildered, but some were laughing. Well, that's one way to motivate you, one of the runners to my right said with a laugh. I guess, I said, touching the thick fabric that made up my collar. I got ready, but I had to wait for another 2 minutes before the next beep. Beep. We all ran the length of the court again. Another 2 or 3 minutes passed. Beep. So you guys get the same message that I did? A young woman to my left asked. Participate in a study. Get a few $100. Everyone nodded. A few of them were touching their collars the same way I had been. Beep. We continued running back and forth, and each time we were given a rest for several minutes. I didn't understand why, especially if this was a fitness test. After an hour of running back and forth, one of the older runners shook his head. I don't like this. Even if it's a joke, why say that? Your collar will detonate. He grabbed at his collar. I don't think it's funny, not one bit. He yanked down on his collar. A loud explosion rocked around the gymnasium as his headless body crumpled to the floor. Beep. We all immediately took off again. When I reached the other side, I turned to stare at his corpse in wordless horror. I spent the next hour running back and forth and talking with the other runners about ways to escape. We were still being given a few minutes of rest after every lap, but I was scared that it'd start shortening soon. The young woman who'd spoken earlier began crying as we crossed back towards the man's body. What sick freak set up this situation? She asked. When we reached the other side, I walked over to her to try and give what comfort I could. Hey, I'm Chris. She looked up at me, wiping her eyes. I'm Jane, she said. Why would anyone? She trailed off, shaking her head. Beep. I turned to the other runners as we crossed. Does anyone have family waiting for them? I asked. We can't go get our phones, but maybe someone will come looking for us. They all shook their heads. Apparently, we all had one thing in common. We lived alone. Beep. The second person died 2 hours later. He'd waited too long to begin crossing the court and was complaining of a cramp in his side. He'd almost reached us when the chirp sounded out. I turned away as we were showered with a fine mist of his blood. From then on, our rest time continued to shorten. Soon we only had a minute to rest before another chirp ran out. I could tell that some of the runners were losing their breath, that they were pushing themselves too hard. I found myself running beside the young woman, Jane, who I'd tried comforting earlier. Hey, she said, her voice trembling. You don't seem that tired yet. Are you a runner? When I'm in shape, I said. Can you pace me? She asked. I can feel my energy running. She cut herself off. No problem, I said. Just run beside me. Beep. We crossed the court. I breathed in deep, trying to keep from cramping. 10 seconds passed. Beep. The other runners let out a collective gasp at the shortened rest time. I took off again with Jane running beside me. Beep. Half of the runners were still mid-court when the beep came. The rapid explosions nearly deafened me. We took off again, doing our best to avoid the slippery puddles of blood that now littered the court like landmines. Beep. Over the next half hour, runners continued to fall behind. After a particularly horrible cycle, all that remained was Jane, me, and one other runner, a young man. Chris, she said, I can't keep doing this. She turned to the intercom. Please let us go. The only answer was another beep. We took off again, only barely reaching the other side. Beep. I threw Jane's arm over my shoulder and ran together with her, reaching the other side just as another beep sounded out. I turned to the other runner when we reached the other side. You gotta help us, I said. He didn't even look at me. Beep. Halfway across the court, Jane threw my arm off and pushed me forward. Then she fell to the ground. I paused for a second, then continued on. Alone. Beep. I looked away, but the explosion was undeniable. I set my jaw and crossed the court. Beep, beep, beep. Sweat poured off my forehead in thick droplets. My breath was coming in ragged gasps, and I knew I didn't have much left in me. When I shot a look at the last remaining runner, I would have been pleased to see he looked to be in an even worse state than I was, if he wasn't staring at me with a murderous expression. Beep. We crossed the court, and I noticed he was closer to me than he'd been before. Beep. He launched himself at me. I dodged, slipping in the pooled blood. His fingernails clawed at my arm, but his foot hit the same pool of blood. I pulled him hard, knocking him off his feet, then sprinted for the end. He got to his feet and began running at me. I thought he was going to make it. I thought that he was going to grab me again. Beep. His furious expression was reduced to a mist of bone and blood just a few inches away from the finish line. I turned away and vomited onto the floor. The intercom crackled to life. "Thank you for participating in the Pacer fitness test. You'll find your prize in locker hash 47. My collar chirped, then fell to the ground. When I'd taken a few steps away from the collar, I collapsed onto the floor, my face wet and sticky with blood. I rested there for a few minutes, waiting for the pain and throbbing in my legs to become bearable. When I got to my feet, I walked into the locker room and immediately called the police on my cell phone. I don't know what was waiting for me in locker hash 47, and I have no desire to find out.